Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. We're going to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I think there's a powerful message in Ghostbusters Afterlife for every Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Master. So, you are running a Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaign in 2021. And I'm going to tell you right now, that ain't easy, right? There are a million ways your game can blow up. Your game can... The biggest threat to your game is just what happens to your players, right? If your players get a promotion and now they don't have time to play. If your players lose their job and now they're too sad to play, right? Or they're going to be busy finding a new job, or they move to a new shift. The other issue is, they can physically move, right? The other issue is you have, unlike the 1980s, unlike the 1990s, unlike the 2000s, you have the best entertainment in the world to compete with now. Better books, better, better small screen content, certainly. Actually, big screen is dying. But video games have come up to replace it. Video games were non-existent. Were just in their inception in the 70s and 80s to compete with Dungeons & Dragons. And trust me, Pong really wasn't a lot of competition for Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Masters. But there are incredibly immersive worlds and hundreds of incredibly immersive worlds, that will fully engage your players, right? So it's hard to keep a Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaign going today, right? So basically, you need to know that you're a Dungeons & Dragons, that you're going to get a sequel, right? You'll tell your campaign story arc. Are you going to get a sequel, right? So right now, Ghostbusters 2016, Ghostbusters 2021, right? They both did the same thing. They had tried to establish a sequel to Ghostbusters 1984 and Ghostbusters 1989, okay? And the reality is Ghostbusters 2016 did not win. There were 5 years, nobody asked for, at the macro level, people weren't asking for a sequel to 2016, right? They were like, nah, one was enough, and here we are in Ghostbusters 2021, Ghostbusters Afterlife, okay? And the reality is Ghostbusters Afterlife is absolutely spectacular. It does a perfect job of marrying old content, of respecting Ghostbusters 1984 and 1989, and then establishing a rock-solid platform for, I'm talking at least a new trilogy, right? And that's one thing is, I think Ghostbusters 2021, Ghostbusters Afterlife, is perfectly positioned for not a sequel, but for a full trilogy, which Ghostbusters has never had, and Ghostbusters fully deserves, right? Ghostbusters is an incredibly compelling intellectual property. Modern day ghost hunters with comedy, right? There's nothing like that. It is truly unique. It is an intellectual property that deserves to succeed, right? So, what is the lesson we learn as Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition players? What is the lesson we learn as Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Masters of if we want a sequel from 2016 and 2021? Here it is. Your narrative needs to be at 80 or 90% of your content, and it needs to be the primary focus of your work over your message, right? So what I mean by message and narrative. So narrative is the Ghostbusters story you're telling, right? And Ghostbusters 2016 had a story to tell, right? But then what is your message, right? So in one of the scenes in Ghostbusters 2021, Ghostbusters Afterlife, they're in a diner. And in that diner, there's a recycle bin, right? By making that recycle bin prominent in the shot, right, they're saying environmentalism matters, right? And we want to project this message to you that you should be recycling, right? So here's the issue. Ghostbusters 2016, I think, had two primary messages it was telling. And I think the creators of that movie really didn't care that they were creating a Ghostbusters film. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell if the creators of that movie even watched the Ghostbusters 1984 and Ghostbusters 1989, right? So the reality is it's hard to even tell if those, and because of that, but the messages in Ghostbusters 2016 were shockingly clear, right? You definitely got the message they were trying to tell. And the reason why was the messages that Hollywood wanted to tell with that movie were far more powerful and far more important to the creators of that film than the narrative was, right? And so at that point, what you end up getting a situation where you have the message over narrative, right? And Hollywood absolutely refuses to learn this lesson. They are very, very strong about, we want the message to be the clearest thing you remember from this film. We don't really care that often if the narrative is there. And I think Ghostbusters 2021 were like, we are telling a Ghostbuster story. The narrative here is 10 times more important than our message, right? Yes, you'll find message in Ghostbusters 2021, but it puts it in the right place. It subjugates it to the narrative, right? Whereas I think in Ghostbusters 2021, the narrative was subjugated to the message, right? And I think anybody who like super cares about Hollywood values really loves, Ghostbusters 2021, because the movie doesn't function as a Ghostbuster movie. It functions as a Hollywood value vehicle, right? And I think, and there are plenty of those people, but it's not enough to make a movie commercially successful. So as a dungeon master, make sure your narrative subjugates your message, right? And the story you're telling is the most important thing. And that whatever message you want to get across to your players is secondary, right? And I think that's the real lesson from Ghostbusters 2021 and Ghostbusters 2016 and Ghostbusters 2021. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.